Most of the people think they need to go to business schools. I went to a business school. Business school teaches you how to be a good employee, not to how you can start a business. So that was a focus. You come to New Founder School, you don't get a degree, you get a viable business.
Hello and welcome back to season 2 of Off to the Valley, the podcast where we uncover journeys of entrepreneurs and changemakers who redefine success across industries. I'm your host Prateek Panda, and today we're honored to be joined by Arjita Sethi, an inspiring serial entrepreneur, educator, and the founder of New Founder School. Arjita began her entrepreneurial journey at 16, co-founding a vocational school in India that reached over 100,000 people. Driven by her fascination with Silicon Valley, she moved to San Francisco where she launched an edtech startup using AI and AR. Today, through New Founder School, she empowers immigrant and unconventional founders to build meaningful ventures while prioritizing well-being. With her experiences spanning global entrepreneurship, education, social impact, her story is a testament to resilience and vision. Arjita, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, and we're looking forward to learning more from your experiences.
Same here. Thank you, Prateek, for having me.
Great. I know off the record, we were talking a little bit about your background and journey. Tell us a little bit more about your upbringing. What is Arjita as a person like?
Yeah, my upbringing was also very unconventional, I would say. My dad was in the army, so I was born in a small city of Meerut in an army hospital because he was there at that time. And then we moved all over the country for a few years growing up. My dad was posted away, so I had to move in with my maternal grandparents, my nani. And so I lived there. I grew up with them. And my nani was very much into Ayurveda and yoga. And my nana was into meditation and yoga and all that. And reading and just it was a very fascinating upbringing. It wasn't the traditional kids go out, play in the playground. So grew up with them, listening to stories, reading books, and getting to know how essential meditation and yoga and Ayurveda and all of these wellness initiatives are. So did that. And then as I grew up, I moved back with my parents. And I was not very excited about school. So I was very bored out of I remember high school where I told my mom and she was running this vocational school. I was like, I want to be your co-founder. I don't know what that meant. I just said, you are leading a very exciting life. I want to do this and I don't want to go to school. And she's okay. She took me up on that offer. I still had to go to school, but I was 16 when I started joining that as a co-founder. And what that meant is wake up in the morning, give the pamphlets to the newspaper people, do the marketing of that vocational school, then go to school, then go to the vocational school, run classes, run sales, run billing, stuff like that. And it was the most happy and joyful I would be at that time because I truly could see every action that I did brought on some change. And we were working with United Nations, Indian Army peacekeeping missions, local orphanages, Kendriya Vidyalayas, and I could see the impact that the school was making. So yeah, joined that and did that for good about 7 years, reached 100,000 people and impacted them with communication and technology skills. And around that time, a lot of this whole idea of scaling was happening where Steve Jobs' speech went viral. Everybody was listening to his amazing speech at Stanford. And then Facebook went live. And I was like, how are these people able to reach 1 million? What is this technology that is able to scale? And I started getting to know about Silicon Valley. And I am a non-technical person. My undergrad was in physical therapy. I have a diploma from the London Academy of Music and Arts in dramatic arts and theater and Shakespeare. So it was a very unusual background, non-technical. And everybody's, oh, you have to be a software engineer to build startup. That was the first time I heard that word back in 2013, I think 2012, 2013. And then I started talking to this person we went to the same high school, but 2 years apart. He was 2 years my senior. So we'd never spoken to each other, but he was based in Silicon Valley in San Francisco. He was working at a gaming company and he was building games that reached millions of people. And he reached out to me. It's again, I'm like, universe conspires. I was thinking how this is going to be possible. And he reached out to me one day You're running the school in India. I have a passion of creating an impact. I'm building these games that are reaching millions and billions of people, but it's not truly impactful. So I want to do something there. I was like, are you serious? Are you a software engineer? He's, yeah, I'm an engineer and everything. I'm like, okay, I know everything about education. I can build that. I know everything about business. I've built a company here. It's doing really well. Let's start a startup. And while talking on Facebook Messenger, we realized we had the same passions, the same vision, and we decided we should get married. Let's just get married and build a startup in the US, and that'll be an amazing thing. 9 months later, got married. I moved to the US and realized that we cannot start a startup because we were on H-1B and H-4, the worst visas. And at that time, the EAD was not into effect as well. So I went back to school. I did my master's in social entrepreneurship and moved to F1 and got my work authorization, which meant I could start my startup. Luckily, our company started doing well. And with my background in social entrepreneurship already in India, I qualified for the EB1 O1 visa, got that, and then onshore moved on to our startup as well. We got venture backed. We were just too early. We were trying to build Chat GPT for kids at that time, back in 2017, and the technology hadn't caught up. It just wasn't feasible at that time. So we hustled and we worked a lot and we built that company. But that is how I landed here and built my first startup.
That is amazing. Very inspiring. There are lots of questions I want to dig in that journey that you've mentioned so far. One is, as a 16-year-old, it sounds like an amazing experience to go work and build this vocational school. What do you think inspired you so much? Yes, you said you didn't like going to conventional school, but what was different about vocational learning that connected better with you? And do you think that applies to a wider set of people? Like, I can totally relate to that because if I go back to my school days, I think the only reason I went to school was because I loved hanging out with my friends. That was the motivation to go to school, because you would meet your friends.
Yeah.
Otherwise, till you enter your late teens, you really can't hang out on your own. So
Yeah.
school is the only place to go meet.
Yeah.
Um, but beyond that, I don't think, yes, education wise, there were some teachers that made a significant impact in my thought process and approach. But otherwise, like in your experience, what attracted you so much to vocational school at the age of 16?
A couple of things, actually. I'm an introvert, which meant I couldn't have a lot of friends. I couldn't make a lot of friends. So either way, even if I went to school, it was a handful of people I was friends with. And I used to love reading, and I am a nerd. Like, you can catch me reading at any time. My house is filled with books and everything. I'm still a nerd, and I love that. And you remember what happens to nerds in schools. They're not popular. So that was basically me. And I realized that, hey, I cannot make friends. And I was not inspired by school books, not the curriculum books. I wanted to read everything else under the sun. So that meant that people would question me at home. My granddad and my mom, they would give me an atmosphere of, hey, pick anything, read anything. The world is your oyster. And in school, it's very strategic. You have to answer within these boundaries. You have to do this. When I saw my mom running that vocational school, I realized, yes, there are boundaries. But the fact is, you actually do something that nobody has taught you. You experiment and you see a change. The change could be positive and you keep scaling that, or it could be a failure and you change your strategy, which it was a phenomenal way for me to learn in life because it meant I was not bound by a 3-line definition of something. I wasn't bound by this is what is going to give me 3 points in my board exams, and that's why I need to do this. And I don't know. I think sometimes people ask me this question over and over again about, like, how did you do it? As a 16-year-old, I had no other agenda except being engaged in an effective way. It wasn't a strategy that I'll become this next CEO or entrepreneur. I'll have big lessons. School was boring and lonely. And I just wanted to have a place where I could use my energy and learn and see the change. And just within a few months, the impact that I saw that I could create at the school, I was like, yeah, this is my calling. This is what I want to do. I have my beef with traditional education. That's the reason I've been so into education, no matter what I do, what I build.
Mhm.
Same during my college days as well, school days. But yeah, I think I was just introvert. That's why I did that.
That's amazing. And I think, from what I heard, you were also just living in the moment and what gave you joy, and you were fully committed to that. And
Absolutely.
that's amazing. Talking about, since we are talking about the theme of education, tell us a little bit about New Founder School.
Yeah. So New Founder School actually came up as an idea after I closed my first startup. And this was back in 2019, 2020. COVID had just hit. So we closed down our startup. Anshul and I, we were working on it together. We realized this is not feasible right now. We'll have to shut it down. So we shut it down, let our investors know, did all that closing, all of that, which is a long, tedious, messy process. So we finished that thinking, hey, 2020, we can finally relax and maybe travel a little bit, figure things out. And 2020, February, San Francisco shut down. And we're like, we are now stuck in this one bedroom apartment, no startup, and we cannot travel, we cannot do anything. And I was heavily burned out. I was burned out to the point because we had been working 20-hour days, not eating, barely eating, living that downtown San Francisco startup life, sell, raise, all of that. And it worked really well. We were pretty successful in terms of like entrepreneur. But I realized that entrepreneurship is already hard, but if you're an unconventional entrepreneur, it gets 100x harder. You don't have a network. You don't know what your next step it should be. You're just shooting the dark, hoping something lands. The only examples of other entrepreneurs is very traditional. I work in a garage and I work all day, and that's how I become successful. Was the only definition. And I realized something had to change there because that did not lead me to success. And that's what I came to San Francisco for. That's exactly the dream. I thought, this is perfect. This is amazing. This is my life. So I wanted to build a space where we could support unconventional entrepreneurs. And you can define yourself. If you do not fit the traditional entrepreneurship definition, you are an unconventional entrepreneur. Come to us, and the focus is going to be how to build slowly, steadily, a longer lasting entrepreneurship endeavor while taking care of yourself, but also making sure that you have the right guidance, you have the right network, you have the right mentorship and the next steps. So I went ahead. It did not even have a name. New Founder School name came in late 2021, I think. In 2020, I just went on my Instagram. I was documenting my entrepreneurship journey. It's like, hey, if anybody wants to know how to start an idea, just let me know. And then 75 people said yes. Like, are you serious? I thought maybe 3, 4 people are going to say yes. That's when I led a webinar and they were like, this is great. What's the next step? Help us with the next step. So it was all experimentation and started guiding the next step. Amazingly, out of the first year, we had 100 plus entrepreneurs graduate and launch something, which was so interesting. That was not a metric that I was looking for, but I realized there was a need for this because accelerators, incubators do come in once you have an idea, you have a team, and you get some initial capital. But how do you even get to a viable proof of concept or a proof of business? Most of the people think they need to go to business schools. I went to a business school. Business school teaches you how to be a good employee, not to how you can start a business. So that was the focus. You come to New Founder School, you don't get a degree, you get a viable business.
That is amazing. And what do you think, in your experience working with so many entrepreneurs who are, in your definition, unconventional, could be immigrants as well? What is like a common theme? If we were to say, here are 3 things that I commonly see unconventional founders face, what do you think has been some of those common themes?
Yeah. The first is delay of building something, launching
Mm.
something, delay of even getting funds. And the delay is sometimes we don't have the network. We're the first ones in our family, in our community, in our tribe. I remember when I moved here, wanted to build a startup. Every person in my community said, why can't you just get a job? Why are you doing this? Well, you can have a nice job. And so many of them today that I've been here for 10 years, 11 years. Wow, it's going to be 11 years this year. Now they're looking back and I wish I would have created something. You have that freedom, and I'm stuck in my job. So the first thing I see is that delay because a lot of people don't know what the next step should be. They don't have that guidance. The second is the delay in funding because, again, when you have to go ahead, build from scratch, you need to know the right people, the right timing. The second issue beyond delay is saying yes to things that you shouldn't be saying yes to because you're just not aware. This person sounded exciting. Let me make him my or make her my co-founder. Oh, this person is really good. He has the money. Let me take money from them. Like, money is not just money. And I did that too. I got money from some amazing VCs and angels, but some really questionable people as well, which I did not want to. And I wish somebody would have guided me. So that thing I've seen happen so much. And I think the third thing is understanding that there is not just one definition of entrepreneurship, because there are not enough examples of unconventional people out there building with a balance. Or forget balance. I understand as an entrepreneur, you have to hustle. I have my moments of hustle. Even today, I've been doing this for 18 years now, and I still have my moments of hustle. But the fact that we need to center ourselves and come back, this is a very crucial thing for an entrepreneur. You are in a creative field. You are not just doing a job that you can just show up and do a standard thing. So I think that understanding is also missing. So those are three issues that I generally see. Can dive into, there are so many other mindset things, but all of that can change if we show them more examples of unconventional entrepreneurship or immigrant entrepreneurship, and we give them the knowledge, guidance, mentorship of and networks of what is possible, what is the next step.
I think that's amazing that you said that it's important to see more examples of unconventional entrepreneurship because a lot of the founders that I have spoken to, and in fact, even when I had first started my first couple of companies, I was younger, my visibility of the startup ecosystem was very influenced by Silicon Valley, right? And there is a particular definition for you to meet if you want to be a successful Silicon Valley entrepreneur, right? You have to grow quick, you have to raise a lot of money. So although some of those definitions change with time or economic scenarios, but largely the expectation is still the same, right? And being able to see that there are other models available and then that you define what is your dream life as an entrepreneur is so important, right? And over the years, I've met founders who've moved to countries like Costa Rica, and a friend of mine who just moved there. He's building a very unconventional startup, moving away from Silicon Valley as a tech founder.
Yeah.
And one of the things he told me, I was like, dude, like, why did you move there? I found my American dream in Costa Rica. So that's the thing. Like we've all have this sort of dream as entrepreneurs, what we want to get to. And the thing is that the dream is unique to you and you have to understand that and you have to find your own path. Right? The more we conform to expectations, the more pressure we add on ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. But here's also the thing, Pratik. I see even in Silicon Valley, a lot of people are building their startups, but because they have the permission to fail, they're able to do it with balance.
Yes.
And that's one of the issues with being an unconventional entrepreneur, that you don't have the permission to fail. It's one shot that you get. Like I had one of my mentors who was this celebrated person in Silicon Valley. And now this person had enough capital and enough network to trust in him to give him the money to build his company over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
That kind of space and psychological security and financial security is not that is given to entrepreneurs. So he's building a high growth startup, yes, but he's still doing it with balance. And I think that is something that if we can give to unconventional entrepreneurs, they would thrive because we come from different perspectives. We have a very different idea of what ideas could work, and the world needs those innovations. I think we need to support them psychologically and financially so that they can afford to fail and feel this is not their only chance.
I think that's a very true, and that's the beauty of Silicon Valley, that it allows you to fail. On the flip side is like people can very easily forget about you, or you're like such a small fish in a big pond that
So,
it doesn't matter. But that comes both ways, right? It also means that you can fail, nobody will care about it. So that itself, like, especially you and me who've come from South Asian descent, is like culturally we are designed or brought up in an environment where failure
exactly.
is not an option. Like you
Yeah,
have
yeah,
to be successful. And
absolutely.
that's a ton of pressure, right?
And
Um,
then that's what you were talking about freedom. We were chatting before. There are different types of freedom. So in my 20s, I was seeking freedom from not having the fear of failure. And now in my 30s, I'm seeking freedom from just not working because I have to work, but because I want to work and I have the joy for work. So I think it was a different freedom. So I still suggest if somebody is in their 20s and has that bug of startup, go to Silicon Valley. That is the place to explore it fully. And then if it works out, it's great. If it's not, so many options available.
when you first moved to Silicon Valley, like if I go back to my experience, it was almost like coming out of a movie for me because growing up when I did my first startup, all I knew was Silicon Valley being this mecca for startups and so on. And I had a very different first week experience in Silicon Valley. I can get into that later. I think I've told about this on the podcast before, but what was your experience coming into Silicon Valley the first time? Did it feel like a dream to you? How did you feel the first few weeks?
First, I want to hear your experience. Even if you can give me a brief overview, I'm really curious at this
I,
point.
I did not have a pleasurable first few days because, like, in my mind, I was maybe 23, 24 years old the first time I came. And I'd started my first company when I was 19 and had been like very enamored by the whole Silicon Valley startup culture. So the first time I got onto a flight to land in San Francisco, I was very excited to go to this place that I felt would be like almost like heaven,
Yeah.
right? And then, of course, you've lived in San Francisco, proper downtown. So you know the challenges of San Francisco. It's not really the cleanest city or whatever, right? So all of that hit me first. And I was like, that's not what they show on sitcoms or TV shows and whatever. And then the first night, a friend of mine was kind enough to let me stay at his place.
Yeah.
And in the morning, I was supposed to take a train down south to San Jose. So I landed pretty late in the night, went to his place, kept my stuff, and he told me, like, let's meet for dinner. The restaurant was about to close. So I'm going to go place an order. It's just 2 blocks down. You can walk down there, freshen up, take your time, whatever. Like, fine. I freshened up, put my stuff, went down, and as I was walking to the restaurant, like somebody popped out of the alley with a knife and was like, I like day zero. It's not even been an hour of
No.
me being in
What?
San Francisco. I'm laughing about it now, but it was very scary.
So
And
scary.
yeah, because I didn't have any money on me. And I was like really trying to explain to this guy that I literally just landed in the US and I was showing my wallet and like, I have no money on me. And then he just said a few swear words and walked away. And I was like, my heart was beating so fast. And for the next, I'm not exaggerating this, for the next 2 to 3 years, I used to go to San Francisco, not in a train, no matter like how little money I had or whatever. I would take an Uber, get off exactly where I had to meet someone, and I would not stay back after 5 p.m. in San
Oh,
Francisco. I would take a train back or whatever, an Uber back and just get out of the city. So for the first 2 or 3 years, I was like so sure I don't want to go to San Francisco at all. I was forced to go because a lot of things were happening in San Francisco. But over the years, like my experience obviously changed. But
oh,
yeah, that was like day zero for me.
that is so unfortunate. Oh, I am so sorry, Pratik. That was your experience. My experience was magical, like
Awesome.
literally coming out of the movies. My experience during COVID was bad, and that's why we moved away, where I had similar experiences. A lot of those experiences with me and my husband, we both had. And that's when we were like, yeah, it's not the same city and it's no more safe. And that's when we moved out after 7 years. For 7 years, it was amazing. It was everything and more that I had thought San Francisco to be. And I'm glad I did that. Like the first day I landed, also because Anshul was here. I think that's why my experience was different. I didn't have to do it alone. When he talks about his coming to the US, the first year was a struggle for him. But for me, it wasn't because he was here. And I had already enrolled in my program. So I knew it was starting in 9 months. He told me, your job for the 9 months is network, learn about entrepreneurship, attend events, do whatever you want. You're free. And it was so important. The fact that I got that, again, financial and psychological security because he had a good job. He said, go ahead, build, and I can join you when the time is right. That was very important. But the moment I landed, he came to pick me up and he took me to Golden Gate. And I went back to my childhood memories of Full House and I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
how is this my real life? What is happening? And then we went to Dolores Park and it was just amazing. Just the whole vibe of the city, everything. I have walked the entire city on foot. Like, I loved walking. That's one thing I miss right now in my life, that I cannot just go to a coffee shop, just go down and go to a coffee shop, just go down. I have see the biggest conference that's happening in the world and people are flying in. We were right opposite Moscone Center, which is where all the conferences
Yeah.
happen.
That is the
So
conference center.
we could see it from we had big glass windows, beautiful apartment. We got really lucky. And we had to go ahead and scale down once we started our startup because we had to save. But the first few years, it was so magical. We were there at every networking event. We were there when blockchain phenomena happened. We hosted blockchain educational sessions at our home, and our home would be packed with startup founders creating their wallets. We did entrepreneurial meetups and things like that because we were living so central. There were so many people.
Yeah.
I got the biggest speaking opportunities. LinkedIn was like 5 minute walk from my house. Some of the biggest entrepreneurs, Instacart CEO at that time was sitting and sipping tea. I would just go there,
Nice.
have tea and just talk to him. It was everything and more that I had thought to be. Yes, cleanliness and safety were an issue, but I'm coming from Delhi. I was living in Delhi. So cleanliness and safety, my bar and benchmark was pretty low when it came to that. But the thing that hit me was after 9 months when I started my entrepreneurship course, so, and it was in social entrepreneurship, we, me and some of my classmates, my friends, went to have our lunch at Subway. That was the first time I saw a homeless person going to trash can and picking out food and trying to eat it. And it just hit me. Wait, what is just happening? There's like Uber and Twitter right here.
Yeah.
It's the richest companies, the richest people. And this guy is eating out of a trash can. And he's all by himself. And some of my American classmates say, you'll get used to it.
Mm.
I've still not gotten used to it.
Yeah.
And it baffles me the amount of inequality that was there literally at that moment. And they were like, is poverty not there in India? For me, the first thing was, I have never seen poverty this sad in India, even though, yes,
Yeah.
there is poverty. But my project, my final thesis project was on homelessness. And we had to interview a bunch of people. And I realized so many of the homeless people, they're not homeless because they're poor. They're homeless because of the situation in life. And it was terrible to know. And I still haven't gotten used to it. And even when it became unsafe, a lot of people had, during COVID, many instances happened with us. So I'm not going to go into it. I didn't feel bad. I didn't feel angry at them. I just felt bad about the situation that we cannot help them and it's becoming more severe. So yeah, that happened 9 months later, but it was everything I hoped to be the first 9 months.
Yeah, I think when I reflect back on all of those experiences, also, I feel like that's what is a holistic Silicon Valley experience for you. It'll give you dreams. It'll also humble you down by showing you things that you would have never imagined would happen in a place like this. And everything together is what actually gives you that fuller experience.
Right.
Yeah, on that note, actually, you did talk a little bit about burnout as well. You mentioned briefly that there was a phase when you felt an incredible high amount burnout. A lot of founders go through that. A lot of times, I don't think we realize that we are in that burnout phase till you actually take a step back. I was definitely in one where I didn't realize I was really pushing myself too hard. Oh, you also mentioned that in your program with New Founder School, you're trying to help founders build companies while maintaining a more holistic way to grow companies. Can you tell a little bit more about your experience with burnout and
Yeah.
what is it that you are really telling or doing with founders that can help them think in that direction?
Yeah, absolutely. I was burned out a lot. We started building our startup when I was in school. It was 2014, September. And then 2015, we raised a crowdfunding round. 2016, we raised our VC round. 2017, we were part of a Finland accelerator. We reached 2018, 40,000 user pipeline. It was just go literally from the beginning. 2019, we were raising our next round. We started getting a little bit of traction, a lot of rejection. Also, we were too early. We realized we were too early, and there was no idea when this idea is actually going to go into fruition. We had paid users and they had finished the product to say, and the rest of it had to be built technologically, and it wasn't just possible at that time. What we started doing is doing more user interviews, more user acquisition, a pitch to more investors, more rejection you're getting. Oh, we're just close to our next yes. It became very intense, especially if you're running this as husband and wife as well. You have to understand if you're doing that together, the highs are highs, but the lows are epic lows. Sometimes if you're doing separate things, if it is low, you can balance each other, you can help each other. But for us, the lows happen together, the highs happen together as well. And it came to a point where we were all the time just working. If we were not selling, we were raising or building or creating all over the world. Our research was happening in Finland. Our accelerator program was in Finland. Our users were in 14 different countries. We were part of Elon Musk's $15 million X Prize at that time. So some of our testing was happening in Tanzania, and our partners were in LA. We were down in Austin for South by. It was just intense. I do not remember a time from 2014 up until 2019 when we were not working. Even on a vacation, we were working. Even on a weekend, we were working. I remember my parents had come down. We were going down to Tahoe, and our crowdfunding campaign was literally launching in the car as we were driving. And we're like, okay, we have to stop. We have to see everything's okay. Is the video live? Who has invested? We had asked our first 50 funders to invest right at the moment. It was nighttime and we're doing this. And then we reached the place in Tahoe and our parents are sleeping, and whole night we've been awake and just messaging people, hey, please contribute. And then we came back and created a banner and went to Fort Mason and Dolores Park, and we were physically requesting money for our crowdfunding campaign. And so it just became something that we were used to and I was having part-time job, another part-time job, so that I don't take money. Only our developers take money. Our team takes money. I don't have to take money. It came down to a point where that was the only thing we were doing. And we did not realize we were burnt out. I think we were pretty burnt out in 2017 already. But we thought if we could just push a little more. And that's the zone I feel a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck in. I'm not doing enough. Maybe I just need to push a little more. Maybe if I just sell a little more, if I find this number, if I get to this traction, this is going to solve all my problems. It didn't for us. In 2019, August, it came down to a point where we had to go ahead and choose our well-being over the fact that do we continue raising, selling, and struggling and seeing when this technology is going to be feasible. I could already see I was not as active, as energetic. Years of eating pizzas at networking event started showing up. And I realized that I needed a break from all of this. But I was very ashamed that I needed a break. And sometimes I still think if I could have just pushed harder, it wouldn't have happened to me. But Anshul was like, no, this marriage is more important for us. Our health is more important for us. It's great to have a partner that recognizes this. Had it just been me, I don't think I would have given up. It was a collaborative decision. And that's when I realized that I was in burnout for years and I didn't realize it. If I would have got it in 2017 and already put in measures, maybe this is not what would have happened to my company. And I've seen this over and over again in founders. When their product isn't doing that well or they're not able to raise the money, they will push on accelerator even harder and faster instead of taking a step back and saying, let's reassess. What do we need to prioritize? What do we need to not prioritize? We will start doing a lot of everything just to survive and see if we can get that success. And that's what I want to tell entrepreneurs, that build a strong foundation, build a network. And it is okay to communicate, hey, I'm going to achieve this in 1 year. No, I'm going to achieve this in 3 years. It's still a big enough goal. In 3 years is not a long time in grand scheme of things. If you have a vision of 3 months, give yourself a year. When we have founders who say they want to raise their round in the next month, that's not happening. It'll take you 3 to 6 months. Are you okay with that? That is one of the reasons that I wanted to start setting those expectations for entrepreneurs and be very clear and transparent that this is a harder journey. And if you have to prepare for a harder match, you don't go unprepared. You take more time training yourself. That's what a good athlete does. They train themselves. So please spend time training, taking care of yourself and preparing your body and being resilient. So it is not the fluff of, hey, I'm too weak, I'm not able to do this. Flip the question. How can I do this? How can I prepare myself physically, mentally, emotionally to be able to be an entrepreneur? Because it is a hard job. And that's what we do at New Founder School. Build that resilience and tolerance for the ambiguity, because those are the biggest skills I feel that entrepreneurs need. And just a week ago, I also launched my own wellness company now around that, which is called Shanti. So yeah, I'm a professor. I'm running 2 businesses. I'm a new mom. I have a 5-month-old, and you can do it all, but you have to give it time. It took me, instead of a year after coming to Silicon Valley, it took me about 11 years. And that's okay too. When we are in the thick of it, we want to do it fast and quick. So I think that's what I want founders to think about. And that's what we do at New Founder School.
That's amazing, Arjita. Thank you so much for sharing that personal journey, and you've achieved so much. But just realizing from your story that it's important to take the time so you enjoy it thoroughly as well. And it's really not a race, and it's your journey, right? And you make the most out of it. As we sign off, any one last piece of advice for founders, especially immigrant founders, who I feel like entrepreneurship is already very hard. And as immigrant founders, we leave behind a lot of that safety net that we get socially, friends, family, and move to different countries to go chase our dream. And you've been an immigrant founder, you worked with so many others. Any one piece of advice for founders looking to navigate the complexities of starting up in a foreign land?
Yeah. First, I would say is be flexible about what success looks like. The success that you see on screens or read about in books, that is their success. I really like Naval Ravikant's book on wealth and happiness almanac that he has. And he says, even if I did the exact same steps that I did to build AngelList today, I would have a different outcome. So don't develop your definition of success based on somebody else's story. Be flexible. There's enough for everyone. There is enough opportunity. There is enough innovation, creation, space, funding, money, all of that for everyone. So take that definition of success and be flexible with it. Secondly, find a network of the kind of people that you're trying to become. That is very critical. You cannot be an entrepreneur in a balanced way if you're not surrounded by entrepreneurs who are building in a balanced way. You cannot be an entrepreneur if you're not surrounded by an entrepreneur. If all you have everyone around you is a professor, you'll not be an entrepreneur. They know nothing about it. And you're going to burn out because you have to now figure out everything. And yes, entrepreneurship, like you said, is hard. You have to figure out everything. But many things can be solved if you have network, if you have community. At this point, I know if a founder comes to me in New Founder School and says, hey, I need somebody who can develop this product for me. I've got you. I'll connect you to this person. Now, that person would have spent time, money, and resources on finding the right person and may not have been the right fit. So having that network that they can rely, hey, can you connect me to this person who can do branding and copywriting? I've got the best person. I'll do that. You need that trusted group of people. So create that so that you can rely on these people. Ask for help. we are very bad at asking for help. When we move across the world, we think we have to be hyper independent. We don't. It's okay. People don't see it as a weakness, and the right people don't see it as a weakness.
Exactly.
So you just have to find the right people. So yeah, that's not one advice. There's a lot of advice, but yeah, I'm running New Founder School. This is my everyday. So not stop at one.
But that is amazing. All of the things that you shared are amazing experiences and amazing learnings, and I'm sure all of our listeners will find it very helpful. Thank you so much, Arjita, again for taking out time, sharing your experiences, talking about your startup journey, and more importantly, sharing some of the deeper, darker stuff, right? Like the struggle that we go through, and uh, very few people are willing to talk about that. So thank you so much again for spending time. It was a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you, Prateek. It was a pleasure.
And that wraps up today's episode. Before we sign off, I would like to thank you for your support and thanks for tuning in. If you loved today's episode, then don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and never miss an episode. Be kind, be happy, challenge the norm. I'll see you folks again for the next one.